everyone. Welcome to the Premier League Forum, where we talk about all things Premier League, basically focus on results from the previous week and our predictions for the upcoming week. Tony, how are you doing? Good night, sir.
Good evening, good night, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Nice to see you all.
Mr. Andy, you're smiling, which is good. I saw your results of the last weekend. I thought you would not be smiling, but maybe you're optimistic for the upcoming game this weekend. So, how are you doing, Andy?
There's been another game in which Gareth Bale scored a worldie since then.
Yeah, I did say. Yeah, there was a pub team that Tottenham played. I missed that, Tony, because you were probably not focused on it. But that's okay.
A pub team that's beaten Mönchengladbach and Salzburg and drawn with Roma. Yeah, okay. Pub team.
So Tony has looked at all the history of this two team has played because he really has to justify that 4-1 win. And Dave, your Chelsea's up there, moving up the table. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. I think it's more everyone around us is crumbling more than kind of us doing our bit. We shouldn't be in the top 4 race, but we're pulling it together at the right time. So
yeah, your manager, not to belabor the discussion on Chelsea, but your manager has made certain what I call drastic decisions, on Lampard-like decisions. So that's been interesting, actually.
Yeah, he's doing. I think he's making the right calls at this present time, and it's paying off. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he does with Champions League and league kind of squads.
So first we'll discuss the results from last weekend, talk about the upcoming games for this weekend, also touch a little bit on some of the Champions League action that took place during the week, and maybe if we have time, touch Europa League. I don't necessarily want to touch Europa League because we didn't do too well, and I'm not sure anyone want to hear about having joined one with Benfica. But the first game I want to talk about is the Leicester versus Liverpool game. Liverpool again lost, so having had one of the highest point totals ever the previous year, they're having some challenges this year. A lot of injuries, but at the same time, they haven't made the necessary acquisitions that one would expect given the injury record. So, Andy, what you thought of that game if you saw it?
Yeah, I saw it. It was a good game. I mean, really, for 70 minutes, 75 minutes, there was no sign that was coming from Leicester. If you're trying to be objective and sort of like, it's easy to criticise Liverpool after the event, but for a good 3/4 of that game, Liverpool were in control of that game completely. They were deservedly 1-0 up and probably should have been further ahead. And then all of a sudden you get an aberration and suddenly they're 2-1 down and they've lost 3-1 in a 7-minute madness. And, all of a sudden the pressure's back on Liverpool again. But, I mean, really, the majority of that game, Liverpool looked comfortable and in control. Leicester, I don't think, had a shot on target until they scored.
Yeah, I saw 18 and Kuke joining us. Welcome, guys. Appreciate you joining us. I think here Apollo is saying Klopp says Liverpool Premier League title defense is over. I would concur with that, actually. I would concur with that.
I mean, that point gap is too big.
That's been over for a while. I mean, City are gone. No one's gone.
Well, I think Arsenal may stop them this weekend, but we'll get to that. Dave, what was your view on the Leicester Liverpool game?
Yeah, I think it's just as Andy said, it's one of those games where Liverpool been looking more in control of games fairly recently as well. I think they've got confidence by getting the new centre backs in, but I mean, they capitulated towards the end of the game, and the mix up with the mix up with Alisson in the centre half. It kind of, as soon as you see that happen, and you're playing away from home, your head's gonna drop. I think towards the end of the game, you think, where it's just not our day. So, I mean, yeah, literally, exactly how Andy said. To be honest with you,
Tony.
Yeah, I mean, look, the defense just collapsed. We saw it sort of falling apart the week previous at City. And then again, a week following, we saw again a comedy of errors between the new centre back Kabak and Alisson. So yeah, I found it interesting. I mean, I never thought at any point in the game that Liverpool, despite their dominance in possession, looked like they were comfortably going to win that game. I always thought, well, you know, Leicester just holding in front, defending well. They're looking to do just what they did, catch them on the break. You know, you've got explosive striker up top. You know that it just takes one ball over, and that kid is lightning. And I was kind of fearing that what exactly happened.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that Alisson hasn't really given up a goal from open play in terms of someone taking a shot. In the game against City and this game, it's not like he gave up a lot of soft goals or something. He just made ridiculous mistakes. And I would love to see the stat that talks about playing out from the back and the number of errors that one may play out from the back versus just kicking the ball long, for example. You know, how do you sort of marry the two in terms of, is it worth the risk in playing out from the back? How much does it get you forward and the opponent's third and make you dangerous in terms of attacking their goals versus the turnovers on your end that leads to goals? I haven't seen those stats, the assessment being done, but I'd be curious to see what that looks like. And I do think people, go ahead, Andy.
Well, I think one of Liverpool's biggest problems, if you look carefully at the way their team is set up, it's not just the fact that they're missing the centre halves, because they obviously are. I mean, any team would miss two, three great centre halves in. Well, I don't think Matip's great, but he's decent. Van Dijk is one of the best centre halves in the world. Gomez is a very, very promising young centre half. So, I mean, they're missing their 3 first choice centre halves. That's going to be a massive miss for anyone. But what has happened with Liverpool is, in order to replace those centre halves, they've dropped their strong midfield into the back four. With Henderson and Fabinho have gone into the back four. And what I think Liverpool are suffering from is not so much, I mean, they're suffering from missing the centre backs, but they've got 2 good players in place. Where they're suffering is they've lost their midfield because their midfield is now playing at centre half to cover their centre. And that's where Liverpool was so strong. That's where they overpowered teams. The other issue they've got is, if you look at their teams, you know, that ran away with the title last year, they were playing a pivot. Fabinho was playing in the pivot, and then you had Wijnaldum and Henderson either side. That was their main 3. But they only played with one pivot. At the moment, they're trying to do that with Thiago. Now, Thiago is a fantastic player. He really is a very, very good player. But you can't really play Thiago as a pivot on his own, because he doesn't have the same pace and the same skill set as Fabinho does. He has a different skill set, which is exceptional. But I think if you're going to play Thiago, you have to have someone else playing alongside him. So you have a double pivot, and then you maybe play a different style going forward. But they're struggling with having Thiago trying to play the Fabinho role because it's not really working. I think they would have to put someone else in there and maybe slightly change their setup. But he doesn't want to change the setup. But Thiago can't do what Fabinho can do. His skill set is still very good, but a different kind of skill set. And I think that's where Liverpool are struggling to try and work out a way of coping. When they had Jota earlier, they were kind of working it a bit differently, but they lost Jota as well. And I think that the combination of all the players that they've lost has really affected. It would affect anyone. It would affect any team to lose 4-5 of their best players. Any team would be affected. You know.
I do think a couple of things. I agree with you, Andy. By the way, in terms of, well, Liverpool lost 5, we'll call it defenders. So you take Fabinho and Henderson in the middle, who are very good defenders. That's why you go to the centre halves. Coupled with Matip, Gomez, and Van Dijk, you're losing the core of. You're losing your stomach, actually, your belly of your team, the core of your team that affects them. Secondly, also, people don't appreciate what Henderson brings to the table and Van Dijk in terms of those diagonal long passes they make that spread the field wide and creates more space. So they're not getting the same opportunities they were getting before to score coupled with the defense in the middle, is not as good. And Thiago is just not good defensively, frankly. He struggles defensively, but he's brilliant on the ball.
Yeah, you need to. I think that's the thing with Liverpool. Like, they had a very workman-like midfield throughout their successful kind of periods, and now it's, you've got Thiago in there. I think, like, obviously, like Andy said, and it's still, he brings something different to the table. Yeah, they're going to be able to control games a lot more. They're going to be able to control possession. He's going to be able to pick out maybe these great passes with his vision, but they always had success of just basically getting that ball and getting the ball forward as quickly as possible and just playing fast. And I feel like they've gone away from that slightly, and it's affecting them. I mean, when you've got players like Salah and Mane, that you just need to get them on the ball. I mean, Salah's world class. You got to get them on the ball as quickly as possible, and that's what Henderson does well with his long passing. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing there that, as Liverpool, they got to either try and fit Thiago in some way, and having two pivots, or even try and play him a little bit more forward, I think, and see if he can just almost like have two players doing the doggy runs, should I say, as defensive mids, and having him more slightly advanced, and see if he can just connect everyone together. But yeah. I mean,
Apollo is saying that he has no pity for Liverpool because Arsenal year after year have had injuries. I would say
we're not feeling sorry for Liverpool. We're just stating fact.
Yeah. No,
we certainly don't feel sorry for Arsenal.
I like to,
so I say one thing. Go ahead,
I like to use the words of Ivan Drago from Rocky 4, where he goes, "If he dies, he dies."
Yeah. So I'll say one thing, actually, which is there are certain teams who can afford to lose 3 centre half, and it doesn't matter much. So we can afford to lose 3 as Arsenal because we have about 8. Spurs can afford to lose 3 because they don't have any.
Yours are all as bad as each other.
For 6 years. Last centre half we had was years ago.
No. If Spurs lose 3, it's a good thing if Spurs lose 3. Maybe they'll find 2 good ones in the reserves or something. They're like us. It doesn't matter who you play. Same results. Anyway, we'll move on to the next game, which is the Tottenham Man City game. I think Andy sort of predicted that would end up here. He didn't expect to win. He was wishing for a draw.
Well,
he wasn't blessed that way.
I said 0-2, didn't I? I said 0-2, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was more. And I mean, I would pretty much got the game fit pretty much bang on. I think really like last Friday, and that I'm not taking any credit for that because I think everyone thought roughly, had the same sort of feeling. But there are 2 key incidents. I mean, Kane. First things first. City could have won that by however many goals. So I'm not claiming that this changed the issue, the result or anything. But Gundogan's penalty is never a penalty in a million years, and that was the first goal, which is always crucial in any football match. Kane hits the inside of a post with a free kick, and then we can see the penalty. I mean, the game could have been different. I don't think it would have been. I still think City would have come back and won anyway. But Gundogan's penalty is not a penalty. I mean, you look at that slowed down, and it's Gundogan that causes the contact, not Højbjerg.
So many times in the last week, though, haven't we?
Oh yeah, no. Look, and this is the nonsense we're getting now with the new rules. And like I say with Bertram, and I do understand what Bertram often says about VAR is we can criticise VAR, but VAR is the technology that is available to the referees. It's how it's being interpreted and the way the laws have changed that is causing the problem, not the technology itself. I don't think there's anything wrong with the technology. It's what they've done with the laws and how they're interpreting the technology that I think is flawed at the moment and needs work. But I think, I mean, at the end of the day, quite frankly, the result was the result. I wasn't great, I wasn't surprised. And like I said last week, I felt that after the City game, was when you were going to see a Spurs resurgence. And I believe starting last night that it's coming. And I believe I'm going to put my neck on the line now because I know I'm going to get crucified if it all goes pear-shaped. But I believe we're going to beat West Ham at the London Stadium on Sunday. And then go on a run where we then have Burnley, Fulham and Palace in our next 3 games. And I then believe that we're going to put ourselves back in the Champions League places. So
yeah,
I'm putting my neck on the line.
Andy, I say one thing. I hope not. I hope you don't go on a run. We can't
I'm sure you don't, because after that we then come to the Emirates. So we're
I feel better about that. We'll stop that run.
The 14th of March has been changed to a 4:30 on a Sunday.
Oh, okay. So we can all watch it. We shouldn't have any obligations then. And we can talk about it afterwards in terms of how we smash you. But anyway, Dave, what about your thoughts on the City Tottenham game?
It's just as everyone expected. It's at the moment, Gundogan's a joy to kind of watch as a player because they're missing De Bruyne, aren't they? And the runs that Gundogan makes and how he's kind of come into form this season's been different gear. I mean, the way that he absolutely bullied Sanchez, didn't he? Jesus Christ, absolutely bullied him. Like, I think he's more off balance, to be fair. But for that, was it the second or third goal? Can't recall. But it's I mean, I think Andy, you expected it, didn't you? Yeah, I don't think you was expecting much from going into extra time, which affected the other team that you played against as well. Away at City, it's the most difficult game really in the Premier League. So yeah, I mean, no shocks, no surprises. I think I went for 4-1, but yeah, 3-0's a bit of a But
Apollo is asking how does Dyer get into the team? That question may be for Andy, and that's probably Andy question, which is, do you rate Dyer, Andy? I'll come to you, Tony. And why does he play every week? Not that Sanchez is any better, frankly.
I think what I would say, and I think this applies to maybe a lot of players in a lot of teams in the Premiership. Arsenal, some, Spurs have got plenty. Is you've got players that are good enough to play the teams outside the Big Six or whatever, and Dyer is one of those. You play Dyer against decent but not top opposition, and Dyer looks fairly solid. Dyer doesn't make many mistakes against the lower teams. The mistakes that Dyer makes often are against the Cities, the Uniteds, the Chelseas. They're where you see Dyer come under pressure. When he's up against top class opposition, there's a mistake in him. It's the same with Aurier. Aurier has looked sensational actually this season in some of the games. He's certainly stepped up since Doherty came to the club, or it seems to have, galvanised Aurier to play better, and he's played really well in some of the games this season. But the games where these players, and this is why I don't believe the likes of Dyer and Aurier are, the future for Spurs if we really want to be competing at Champions League level, is because when they come up against top class opposition, there's a mistake in them, and you can't make mistakes against top class opposition because they punish you. You can get away with it against your Burnleys and your Fulhams, and even they'll punish you sometimes, but you can get away with a mistake against some of the less strong opposition. You make a mistake against City, the ball's in the net. It's as simple as that. And you can't do it. And we make too many defensive errors in big games. And that's why I believe, the likes of Dyer, Aurier, Sissoko, they're decent, strong Premier League players, and they can play in probably 75% of the fixtures, but they're not really good enough if we want to be challenging for trophies. And that's what worries me against those sides. But Dyer, in many games, looks strong.
Yeah,
but like I say, he's found wanting when he comes up against top class opposition.
Tony, that question is for you.
Yeah, so in response to that, 18, it's simple. Dyer to me is a converted midfielder. He's much like your Milner or Henderson. They're converted midfielders. They can play as a strong defender, but their optimum position is ahead of a defender.
The only thing with that is when Dyer came as a defender, but he actually started at right. He came as a right back, as a centre.
He was right back, yes.
And then Pochettino converted him into the holding midfield player. But then Dyer realised what kind of competition he's got in central midfield when he had the likes of Dembele and Wanyama and people like that. And then he started saying to Pochettino, well, I want to play at the back. And Pochettino wasn't too sure about that. But Mourinho said, well, OK, if that's what you want to be. And I think Mourinho kind of sees Dyer as his sort of English Spurs Terry, except for the fact that Dyer isn't in Terry's class, and therefore it doesn't really work. And I think Mourinho wanted that from Dyer, but I think he's beginning to realise that Dyer isn't in the same class as John Terry was, and therefore it's leaving us. We've got too many players: Lloris, Dyer, Aurier, Sissoko. They're all good players, and what I think Lloris is a higher level than the rest of them. Or certainly was, but they're making too many mistakes now too often, and that is causing us a massive problem.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you look at the top teams, most of the teams will complain about players they have who are not at the quality of a top four. So Arsenal is not top four anymore. But if you look at even Man U, Lindelof, for example, people are not convincing him. They may not be convinced about Shaw. Yeah, but I'm just saying,
you take Fernandes out of that team, and what have Man United got?
Yeah, they have players. It's just that they don't all click together, or it's not as harmonized as you'd like it to be. Yeah,
you've got players. Chelsea have got players. Spurs have got players. We've all got decent players, but there are special players that make the difference. In Man United, Fernandes is the one. When they're in trouble, Fernandes is always the one that digs them out. You take Fernandes out of that team. Pogba does it occasionally, but the reason Pogba irritates me is Pogba does it when Pogba feels like doing it. He does it 3 or 4 games in 10. Fernandes does it 8, 9 games in 10, and that's what you need. That's what a top class player does. A top class player gives you 6, 7, 8 every week. And that's what Fernandes does. And maybe has one bad game in 10.
I'm just asking the question. Has Spurs got a busted flush in Marino?
I think Sunday is a really, really important game for Tottenham. And the reason I'm going strong on us winning there on Sunday is because I believe we have to for our season. I believe if we don't win on Sunday, the season could fall apart quite quickly. Certainly in the league anyway. Whereas if we do win on Sunday, I think that could galvanise the team to then go on a little run. And I was encouraged by some of the signs from last night, the way they certainly went out in the first half to get the job done. We coasted a bit in the second half. It was a bit like a training session, but we did the job in the first half last night. And that's what you want, because then the players can rest themselves for Sunday. But I don't think Mourinho's a busted flush yet. I mean, bearing in mind he's still trying to put his stamp on the team. He's still really not had any money, a small amount of money to spend. We've got no fans in the stadium, got no income. It's looking like Levy's giving the little signs out that we're probably going to have to sell someone at the end of the season. Whether that's obviously nobody wants it to be Kane, although it wouldn't shock me now if it was. But the rumours are going out there. It could be Son, it could be Kane. I think they want it to be Ali, which is why they've tried to push Ali towards the door. But the problem is no one will pay any money for Ali at the moment because he's hardly been playing. So it's
so we're gonna move on from Spurs because my hope is that West Ham will help us all this weekend. Please, West Ham, please help us all this weekend. Put Spurs out of their misery because they are very miserable at the current moment. And we're gonna go to my favorite team, Arsenal, who gave Leeds a lesson this weekend. I'll have Tony go first, since we were very much smiling this weekend about the results of. I was concerned about Leeds, given how they play, and the last time we played them, we had a red card, we eked out a draw, but it was not the most comfortable victory. At least in the first half, it looked that way, but a little bit chippy towards the end. But Tony, what was your view on the game?
So at last weekend, I kind of feared this could be a bit of a stinker for us. I felt this could be one of them banana skins that could end up going the wrong way. But we came out like we did against Wolves, and for 45 minutes, I was just salivating watching the way we were passing, the movement, the finishing. It was just magnificent to watch. And then we started the second half, and it just carried on. Then you kind of just feel, I just feel Arsenal just took their foot off the accelerator, and that's when they conceded the 2 goals. And that's not surprise. You're 4-0 up. You just know mentally some players are going to switch off. So I wasn't worried about the 2 goals. You get a little bit itchy feet, when you think possible penalties. But you know what? I think that evened itself out because both teams had good shouts for a penalty. But the pleasing thing for me is to see that quality of football. We saw it against the first half against Wolves for 44 minutes, and then to see it again this Saturday. And then we revert to type in the midweek. But, I take every opportunity to gloat when we performed the way we did last week. Fantastic. If we played like that every week, we'd be a top 4 team.
Dave, what was your view?
Arsenal played well. This was a game that I thought Arsenal would lose. But luckily, or unluckily for me, luckily for you guys, they really put in a performance. And I want to say even Bielsa at the end of the game said, I got, Arteta came with the right tactics, the right strategy, and basically said that Arteta got it all right, which, based on the first half, looked it, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think like Tony said, took the foot off the gas in the second half. And I think when you're when you're 4-0 up, it's easy to do that. It's easy to go, what, the game's done, dusted. But if there's one thing with this Leeds team is that even when they are down, even when they're winning, I've watched games where they've been up. I can't remember who it was, whether it's a Newcastle game that they played, where they're beating them and they're still trying to go for more goals and stuff. So they're a team that will never give up Leeds. And I think Arsenal made it close towards could have even given that lead up. But listen, if you score 4 in one half, you shouldn't lose a game. And if you take your foot off the gas, like Arsenal did, it's always going to be a scary last 10 or 20, isn't it? Really, but. Yeah, good performance. It looks like Arsenal rounding off into a bit of form, which is, I don't know where you guys can get now. Where are you guys in the table now?
Nowhere to be seen. That's
it. We're 6 points off of Liverpool.
That's not bad. Well, it just goes to show.
12 points away. Give out Liverpool. They get informed what happens.
It goes to show, doesn't it? Like you get a couple of. It's like us, we were. Oh, we're not going to get Champions League. We're out of it. I'm watching videos where people go, predict the top 4, and we're not in the thumbnail, Chelsea. And then next minute, we're there. In with a real shot, and with it, we're thinking our own hands. So it goes to show you put a little run together, or you go on a bad run, you can be right in the mix. Arsenal now, they're playing well, so it could be you could be right in there for maybe. I'm not going to go and say a Champions League spot, but maybe Europa League. If you can get Europa League from what's happened this season, that would be a success, really, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Andy, I'm sure you enjoyed the game. Andy, I'm sure you really enjoyed the performance.
I have to say that I didn't watch all of this game. The Arsenal Leeds game, because I'd been all footballed out and I'd promised the missus we'd watch a film. But yeah, no, I've seen highlights of the game, and I did see bits and pieces. It looked to me that Arsenal played very well. Certainly for the first hour, you then seem to have a little bit of a panic towards the end, but I think you had enough in the can by then. You know, I've never denied Arsenal, if it all clicks, have got some very, very good and talented players. Yeah. The problem Arsenal suffer, a bit like Spurs really, is consistency. Is that when they're very good, but they're not very good often enough to really challenge the top four. Now, the question is going to become is, where does it go from here? Do Arsenal now go and get a result? Because any kind of result, a draw or a win against City on Sunday, would be a fantastic result for Arsenal to keep the positive momentum going. I mean, you lot all seem quite disappointed about drawing last night. I know Aubameyang missed a hatful of chances, and after scoring a hat-trick on Sunday, that was obviously disappointing. But honestly, if you'd have said before the game last night you'd go to Benfica and get a 1-1 draw, albeit on neutral territory, that's not a bad result, I don't think. Had you been playing in their stadium, it would have been even more impressive. But I mean, the fact is, you've got a draw against a very good European side, a very experienced European side, and you've got the home leg to come. Albeit that the home leg's going to be 1,000 miles away, but you know, in Greece. But I mean, the whole thing's a nonsense. But anyway, you know, I would be fairly satisfied if you were 1-1. That, you know, so, you know, you've got a good chance to progress. But Benfica are dangerous, and they're more than capable of scoring an away goal as well. And obviously, if they do, then you've got to win the game, and it won't be easy. But I think in terms of the league game, you know, you played very well against Leeds, and that it's good that you're happy. I think you'll get brought back down to earth on Sunday, except for the fact that if Guardiola was going to help anyone out, then it might be Arteta.
Andy. Guardiola doesn't help his mom out when it comes to football. He's not helping anyone. He's there bigging up Arteta, saying Arteta is going to get us in the top four at some point. But Sunday, the gloves are off.
If Arsenal win, then it's because he's done you a favour.
Not because you got smashed last week. You think that's going to help us.
But well, now he's 10 points clear. He might just feel a bit sorry for Arteta and give him a little bit of a helping hand on Sunday. But,
Lord, if only a Spurs fan would say that about Guardiola. And we know his history. That will never happen. One thing I'll say about that, though, is a couple of things. One is, I do think if you fight fire with fire, you have a better chance against Guardiola. So, for example, we played Leeds. We pressed Leeds. We pressed Leeds really, really hard. We played their game. I was better at their game than they were. I think with Guardiola, sometimes we get too much respect. Obviously, it's deserved. But we have the skill set, at least in the front four, apart from Aubameyang, frankly, to really give them a good game. So it should be interesting if we get Partey back.
I certainly think you could score. Your defence worries me against their attack, basically, particularly with the fact I believe that De Bruyne and Aguero are back in training and in the squad now. So if that's the case, you could be up against it on Sunday. But, you know, put it this way, no one gave you a prayer in the FA Cup semi-final last year, and then you beat them and went on to win the Cup. So there's no doubt that Arteta, if anyone can outfox Guardiola, then Arteta might be the one, having worked that closely with him for that long. You know, Arteta is probably has got a good a chance as anybody. I still just think with City on the run they're on, they're just literally steamrolling everybody. I think it would be quite impressive if Arsenal can get something on Sunday. I just don't think they will. But
I just want the score to stay low. A low score. We don't want to get a hiding because
that's what I said last week, wasn't it?
Yeah. Andrew's predicting a draw in that game. It's very ambitious. They don't score 1 goal, Andrew. They only put 1. And if we have David Luiz, the question is which David Luiz turns up? The one that keeps getting red cards in big game, or the one which plays controlled and plays within himself and not try to do too much. We'll see what happens. The last game from last week that we'll talk about is Chelsea Newcastle.
Would you play him? Would you play Luiz?
He has
because
to.
It's the kind of game where you need someone fleet of foot. You need to be fleet of foot. You can't be static on your feet. As good an offensive player as he is, he's probably the least defensively good player we've got. Yeah,
so the difference is that he has Gabriel with him, and that's that matchup, which Gabriel would be the person who has the athletic ability.
Gabriel can't cover him.
I'd play Gabriel and Holding if I were you.
Exactly.
I think he's going to play Luiz, actually. He always plays Luiz when he's fit. He plays when he's fit.
Yeah, but
you got too many daggers there. You got too many daggers. You need fleet-footed centre-backs because their players in the centre of park will run and skip and hop and jump. And
so you consider Holding is fleet-footed? Which where you Holding? There's a reason why his name is Holding. He holds. He's not fleet-footed. He's not fleet-footed. Sorry. Gabriel is fleet-footed. Holding is not fleet-footed. I understand what you're saying. My concern is David Luiz. He's going to make a mistake. When he's under pressure, he loses it someplace during that game, and we're going to be under a lot of pressure.
Eric Dyer.
Yes, exactly. Eric Dyer, yes. You want to say something, Dave?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you watch the way that Jesus has been coming into that kind of he's been coming a bit deeper now to try and get on the ball, hasn't he? And that kind of scares me with Arsenal's defence. If you're going to be playing Holding and Gabriel, I think you've got to have. I know what David Luiz can do, both good and bad. But if he can, if he can have experience there, and you can just let Jesus, not bring any of your centre backs out. I think that's going to help slightly. He played against Tottenham, didn't he? Where he's trying to come in and get on the ball and just having people go past him pretty much. So. Yeah, I'll be worried if you've got a little bit of inexperience there and just having those defenders trying to get too close to him as a striker.
Yeah, the difficulty with City is this. You normally have a skill team. They don't play as hard defensively, right? They like to be on the ball. They like to do dirty work. All City's players do the dirty work, along with have that skill set. It makes it very difficult to play against them. So we won't get the comfort on the ball that David Luiz normally gets to make the long passes. He pressed. We'll see what happens. It should be interesting. I think Andrew is saying that he expects the 1-1 draw, and we're going to eat some humble pie. I want us to win, Andrew. I want us to win, but let's face it. City has won 17 straight, and they seem to be getting better and better every week. Without Aguero, without De Bruyne, I mean, you can't really say, given our performance, we're just over 500. We're what, 9-8 or something like that? Somewhere in that range, or 10-9, whatever our record is, that we expect to get a result. I would love for us to get one, but it's going to be difficult to do. The last game we'll touch upon before we go into, the second to last game is just to give David a forum here on Chelsea versus Newcastle. It was a nothing game. I predicted a draw because I thought Newcastle would turn up. They didn't. So, Dave, we'll just get your perspective, and then we move on to the Everton-Man City game.
Yeah, you're seeing Tuchel, that possession kind of football really, really take place. And it's a bit more, the difference between like Frank and Tuchel's sides is I think Frank's was possession to have possession. I think Tuchel's is possession to really kind of go at certain spaces in the final third. And it's Newcastle, I think, apart from you, Bertram, I didn't think Newcastle would turn up in the game, and it was comfortable. Werner, managed to get on the score sheet, and is looking good. So hopefully he's going to be one. He's going to be able to turn up from now and start banging in goals.
Do you not think, Dave, that he's benefiting from having Giroud play up front with him? Because I always say this: Giroud will bring players in. He's so good at that. That's why he plays for France. He doesn't have to score loads of goals, but what he will do is he will provide loads of assists.
I think this is the thing. I think we definitely need a centrepiece up front, whether that's Tammy or Giroud, whoever, because the thing with Werner is he will try and float out to that left. The one thing that I'm going to applaud, the guy that I thought was out of the door completely, I thought he was gone, Marcus Alonso, is he's quite a smart player. When he sees Werner going out to the left, he thinks, you know what, I'm going to try and go inside and occupy that space. Even though he's a wing back, he thinks, you know what, if you're out there, I'm going to go in here and make a run and interchange. And he's been playing really well recently. I think this was the honeymoon period, and I still feel like tomorrow's a big game for us. But then we go on a run where we've got United the following next week, and this is going to be where we assess Tuchel, I think, in terms of big games and us being able to pick up points against other teams.
And tonight they've rearranged your game with Liverpool. That's now bang after the Man United game midweek. So they've now put our Fulham game on March the 4th, and they've put Chelsea Liverpool March the 4th as well. So that they've just announced those fixtures today.
I think this is where you're going to see what Tuchel's going to be able to, what he's going to be able to do against these big teams. He's now got a midfield that he likes. He's pretty much gone with Kovacic and Jorginho, and I think Kante's going out the door as well. I think I think there'll be an offer from a team, and I think he's, from what Tuchel wants from a midfielder, it's something that it looks like Kante can't offer, which is sad. It's really sad, but it looks like he's set on his midfield. Looks like he's set on his system, and yeah, where do I see Chelsea finishing? I think we'll get Champions League. I mean, yes, we're going to be biased. I think we're going to get full spot. I think Liverpool are going to bring it back, and I think United are going to creep in there. I think United will.
What about Leicester?
I think they'll fall away again. Leicester. It's just, I think we're all waiting for Leicester to fall away, if I have to be honest with you.
We did that to our peril. We did that to our peril before, thinking Leicester will fall away. There's no reason to think.
Two things actually. Tuchel, I think, was
Villa this week and then Arsenal next week. So that'll be a big test for Leicester. If they can come through those two games, then maybe people will start to change their mind. But if they drop points against Villa this week and against Arsenal next week, then people will start thinking they're going to fall away again.
I think Tuchel was identified a long time ago, Dave, because there's no way you come into a team, know exactly who the players are going to be in what spot, drop players like Kante, drop the keeper, unless you had worked it out a while ago and figured it out. So I don't think when he came for Lampard, it was a snap decision. I think he was in play a while back and just had to sign and get things done. Because the way he structured the team is totally different from, not totally different, but somewhat different from how Lampard had it. So he must have thought about the players, had time to assess them and make informed decisions, frankly.
But also they brought him in at a time when he had a run of winnable fixtures.
Yes.
I think Lampard's probably a bit frustrated that at the end of his reign, they had a few tough fixtures. He had a few bad results against, not so great sides. But Lampard might have been looking at this run of fixtures, thinking, I can make ground up, I can pick points up there. Then they sacked him, and Tuchel's come in, and yes, he's organised everybody, and I think Tuchel is a decent organised manager, and I think he will do well for Chelsea because he's got a good squad there. He's got some very, very good experienced players there. Azpilicueta, Silva, Jorginho, and they've got Giroud up front. They've got some very good experienced players, along with a lot of very good young players. Werner, Mount, these kind of people. They've got a good squad there. And I think Tuchel knows what he's doing. He's a very good student of the game. I think tomorrow will be an interesting one, though, because I think there's a sideshow here between Hasenhüttl and Tuchel, because I think they've got a little bit of a long-standing thing from their German days, and also Hasenhüttl had his nose put out of joint that he wasn't considered for the Chelsea job. Now, maybe that was because, he's had a couple of bad results, but I think he was interested in the Chelsea job, and they didn't really look at him, and they went straight for Tuchel. And I think there's a little bit of history between those two, and I think Hasenhüttl they've had six defeats on the bounce, Southampton.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think they might be due a performance. So I think Chelsea might have a tough one tomorrow. They may still win, but I could see it being a very, very competitive game tomorrow.
Yeah, I think the same. There's that kind of Southampton not playing, like not getting results. Losing to like Newcastle away when they had a man up, and all of this culminates. And there's so many times where I can recall that we will gift teams when they're on a bad run. Arsenal, your first win was us when you was bouncing back into a little bit of form. I can recall it so many times. So I wouldn't be surprised if Southampton get a draw against us or a win. So
last game is the Everton. I'm conscious of time. The Man City game. Quick comments on that game. Man City won 3-1. Andy.
Yeah, it was a interesting game. I mean, City largely dominated the match. I mean, Everton got level quickly after City scored, but without really deserving it. But they did it, and it was tight for quite a long time. You always thought Everton might get a break, but City just absolutely pummeled them in the second half, and really, well, they completely deserved the victory. I don't think anyone could argue with that. I think it was a fairly expected result, but Everton have suddenly slipped a bit. Maybe had their attention distracted by that, that mass, the 5-4 after extra time with Spurs in the FA Cup. That possibly took a little bit out of their legs for the City game, and you don't want to be playing City when you've not got any leg. Was that when was that the Everton City game? Wednesday night, yeah. I don't know. Maybe they were still feeling it. They had a bad result against Fulham as well before that, didn't they?
I don't put any of that down to it. I put it down to the quality in Man City. And the thing I'm going to say about that result is look at the scorers. Again, you got to look at the Man City team. They get goals everywhere. Where's Bernardo Silva been? I didn't even think he was still playing football at Man City, but he comes out and he's scoring goals. Mahrez, whenever he plays, he's got goals in him. This team can get you goals from everywhere. Every single player.
They've got 10, 12, 15, 40, 50 million pound players in the squad. I think,
you expect that.
But that's what I'm saying. They've got some of the best players in Europe, and half of them don't play every week. But they've got a sensational squad. I always said I was saying even earlier in the season when City was struggling, I still fancied City would come back and win the league because I said they're still not that far behind. Yeah. Even though, when Spurs were top, City were 9th, and then now City are top and Spurs are 9th.
So you see why this team, the Big 16, they want to go to a Super League, because you can't compete with those financial clout with a team who can spend $1 billion on team and have players in every single position, 2 players in every position. You can't compete with that. If you're in a Super League, you generate much more revenues. You can go buy the same players City's buying and pay them as well as City's paying them. Right now, if you notice, Chelsea was dominant because Abramovich had the most money at the point when he came in. Now we're seeing the same thing with City, because financial fair play is a joke. You can't really compete with that.
That's what I'm saying. It isn't a good spectacle for football that one team is so powerful. And I worry about the Super League, because I think if you have it break, if it's still part of the usual league system, then fair enough. But if they have a Super League which breaks away from your bread and butter of playing, your West Hams and your Fulhams and your Crystal Palaces and your Burnleys every week, then I actually think a lot of people will get turned off football.
Yeah,
there'll be some will love it, just seeing high-profile games every week. But I also think there'll be some people that will switch. A lot of the true football fans will switch off because they won't like it.
No, I agree. Just a couple of things. One is for the Champions League games. We'll touch upon those quickly. Time is of essence here. Then we'll touch upon the games that's upcoming this weekend. So first game I'll touch is a Leipzig-Liverpool game. Perspective, Tony?
Very, very, very professional performance. But having said that, the Liverpool goals were gifts. They got 2 gifts from Leipzig. Defensive errors.
Upamecano, who is a fantastic player, has had an absolute nightmare in the game.
He was awful.
Not the first game, by the way.
He had an awful game against Manchester United as well.
Yes. He is a very good player, but he has some David Luiz in him. And I see that quite a bit active when he plays. He can look exceptional, like he did, I think, when they played, was it PSG? And then after that, he can look really bad in other games. So, not sure what that's about.
He's signed for Bayern Munich now, hasn't he? He's signed a pre-contract.
Yes.
So he's signed for Bayern Munich. So he's going to be there next season. But which I think has pissed Leipzig off a little bit. Or, sorry, I probably shouldn't use that language. But I think it's upset Leipzig a little bit.
And he looks like he's playing like there's something there. You know, you kind of feel like, why am I playing for you now? You know, I'm going to win it all next year.
I just think it's a really odd time to announce your transfer to another team the day before you're playing a Champions League last 16 game. It's just a bizarre time for announcing it. It was very strange.
Yeah.
I think but Bayern Munich have history like that, because I remember when Lewandowski announced that he was going from Dortmund to Bayern, and it was like the worst timing in the world. I think it was just before they were due to play each other, and it was like, what are you saying? How can you say this?
Bayern can do anything in Germany. Bayern can do anything.
Yeah.
They dominate the league. They buy who they want to buy. They self-select players. They do it all the time.
Can I just answer Andrew's question?
Yes.
I just quick, Andrew. I think that modern football fans. I don't think modern football fans are like my generation of football fans at all. I do think they like sort of instant gratification, and they like seeing all the best players and this sort of skillful game. I personally, crave, the football we used to see 20, 30 years ago, where you could actually put a tackle in and not have someone brandish a red card. And I think we're losing some of the atmosphere that was around the game. It's a physical game. It's a contact sport. And, I'm not keen on the direction that the current game is moving. But I think modern football fans, which I probably am not a modern football fan anymore. But I think they love the game as it is. But I'm not that keen on the way that football is headed.
So I'll touch upon that a little bit, which is a lot of sports, whether it's NFL football, whether it's NBA basketball, have moved away from the supposed contact way of how you play the sport, right? If you look at NBA, you can't touch players anymore, and they would always go back to the players in the old days saying you could, clothesline a player or go into the basket and you wouldn't even get a technical foul. So it's human beings becoming much more civilized, is the way I put it, and realizing that, yes, contact is good, but it's not the be-all, end-all when it relates to human beings and their physicality. And players can play longer now. They don't play as long in those olden days. They play much longer now than they did because they take care of themselves, but they also protect the players. So I'm not on either side. I'll say that playing football in the old days was like going Russian roulette. You never know what's going to happen.
It wasn't like that. The game was different. I mean, all games change. Change happens. There's nothing wrong with change, but what I don't like is change for the sake of change. I think change to improve the game is great, but change just for the sake of it, like some of the law changes, in my opinion, they're doing it so that they can justify their £500 million a year salaries or whatever they're paying themselves at FIFA. I just think some of the changes don't make any sense, and they're not improving the game.
True.
But
True.
All I'm saying is the game was pretty good. It became the greatest game in the world without some of these changes they've made recently. But some of the changes are good. So I mean, I'm not saying everything should stay the same, but I think I do miss some of the challenges. Now people are getting booked for nothing.
I agree.
You can't touch anyone now.
True.
It is getting silly. I mean, when I was a teenager, we were actually coached on winning the ball and sort of leaving something on on the man.
Yeah.
You win the ball, but you let the guy know that you were in the tackle. Now,
no, Andy. The coaching was this, Andy, which is one can pass you, the man on the ball, but not both.
well, yeah,
One can pass you, not the man on the ball, but they can't both pass.
Did you see the game the other night? Who was it that got Fulham Burnley? Fulham got 1-0 up. Fulham were 1-0 up the other night in a game that really they needed to win, and then Burnley's equaliser. The ball gets played down the line, and the Burnley guy just lets the ball go through his dummies it, and he runs around the Fulham defender, and the Fulham defender just stands there. The ball goes through his legs, and the Burnley guy's off. Rodriguez, I think it was, crossed it for Barnes to equalise, and made it 1-0. But I'm like to the defender, why don't you just take him out? He was on the halfway line, so it wasn't going to be a red card.
Right.
And he just let him run past it. It just baffled me. But anyway, carry on.
Barcelona, PSG. Andy,
What a game!
What would you say about Mbappe? Finishing for
Unbelievable.
Mbappe, just unbelievable. You know, the first one was a bit of, wonderful footwork in a tight area in the box. The second one was a slam into the roof of the net, just rolling out. And then the third one on the run, changing his body shape to curl it in the top corner. I mean, Mbappe is still so young, 22 years old, and a real class act. He really is.
Correct. The question: where does he go next? Does he stay at PSG or does he go to Real Madrid? That's the question.
He stays at
Can Real Madrid
PSG.
afford him?
Yeah.
Can they afford him?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I feel those two teams, both Barcelona and Real Madrid, right now, have got such aged squads. They need like total restructure. I mean, I looked at the team sheet for Barcelona, and
£1 billion in debt.
Yeah, they got some
look at the team sheet, and you can pick half a dozen players who shouldn't be playing anymore. Not in that team.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah, they have financial problems, but the banks in Spain always underwrite them anyway. So no matter how much in debt and bankrupt they really are, they still underwrite them.
Barcelona can service the debt because once fans come back, they can fill their stadium, they can earn the money back. The problem is right now, they couldn't afford to buy a big money player. They can't do it.
Yeah,
agreed. And they've allowed their own squad to age so that they've got very little value in their own squad. Sell on value in their own squad. So I just think they've allowed a strange set of circumstances to develop there.
Yeah, they've done it.
Dave, you want to say something, Dave? Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Barca and Madrid. I mean, Barca predominantly, they've done it to themselves because of the transfers that they've been making. Things like Arthur for Pjanic plus money. I mean, they've been the victim of their own demise in some ways. The PSG game though, Jesus, yeah, Mbappe's he's on another level, and I don't know where he's gonna go. I think everyone's looking at Madrid, but then you've got other players in that. You got other players in that PSG setup as well, like Neymar. Where's he gonna go? Like Barcelona, it doesn't look like that's gonna be likely anytime soon. So what are you gonna do? How are they going to get hold of him? Every single season, I think we're going, Neymar's going to leave PSG, but he's still. No,
he's re-upping. He says re-upping with PSG. He's not.
They're saying now that Neymar wants Messi to go to PSG to join him.
Yeah.
Would you want Messi? Would you want Messi? That's the question.
Well, could you imagine a forward line of Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe?
I think Messi is half the Messi we knew 2-3 years ago.
Agreed, but he's not playing in a team. That that team, the old team with Xavi and Iniesta, and even some of the more recent, players, Busquets and all these kind of guys, they were all designed to get the best out of Messi. But Messi was a genius in his own right. The problem they've got now is the players that they've got there in that midfield now can't generate the same level of service to Messi. So Messi's having to drop deeper and deeper to try and get the ball, which means he's further away from the goal, and it's more easy to protect your goal when he's that far away.
I think
Yeah, I
the
watched
problem
him
with
against Barcelona.
and the same, sorry,
Go ahead, Tony.
I think the problem with Barcelona and Real Madrid is they've invested heavily in certain players who they thought would become the new Ronaldo and Messi. So, for instance, they were expecting Hazard to take over from Cristiano. It hasn't worked. And clearly, with Barcelona, they thought with getting Griezmann and Dembele, that would solve a lot of their problems. And again, it has
look why they paid Liverpool for Coutinho.
Yeah, exactly. You know, look
So here's
at
the
those
question. Here's the question, though: is Messi the problem, or is it those 3 players?
No.
I think
No,
it's
I think it's a bit of both. They've overspent on players that weren't money. But Messi is obviously in the twilight of his career. I mean, he's still a wonderful player, and I still think if you put him in another great side, which is why I think he will be very careful where he chooses to go next, because he can do what he wants in the summer. He's out of contract, but he'll be very careful what he chooses, because he'll want to go somewhere where he'll want to go to a very strong side where he'll know that they're going to be on the front foot most of the game, and he's going to get plenty of service because he's still a top-class player. He might not be the player he was 5 years ago, but he's still better than most.
Just like what Ronaldo's done by going to Juventus. He's put himself in a position where he can't fail.
Yeah, but you look at, I think, as well, you look at the system that they're playing, Barca, and you got to look at the manager as well. They've got Ronald Koeman as manager, guys. Like, for a team like Barca where they've had so many good managers and coaches, Pep, Enrique, as well, you'd expect them to have a top-notch gaffer in charge.
I don't know. Ronald Koeman was a top-class player, and he played for Barcelona, and he was a Dutch legend. I mean, okay, he may have not had the same glittering managerial career, but I think he stands up there in terms of being a player alongside the Guardiolas and some of the others. You know, I think Koeman is a pretty good, manager. I just don't think that he's inherited an aging squad, which he's struggling to do anything that great with. But as a player, he was a legend as a player.
Is Koeman a manager or is Messi the manager? Is it Koeman the manager or Messi the manager?
I suspect that nothing gets done that Messi doesn't agree with.
I suspect it's neither, because don't forget, very often the decisions that go on in Barcelona and Real Madrid come from the board.
No, I'm talking about playing on the field, not about the board decision. I'm talking about playing. So think about it this way.
Decisions. The board are more involved in team than most other teams.
So here's the challenge, Tony. So Dembele, Coutinho, Griezmann, all offensive players, but the ball has to go through Messi. So if you're a very fluid player, if you're an offensive player, you want the freedom to play. You can't play freely with Messi. The ball has to go through Messi.
I always thought Griezmann to Barcelona was a strange one. I figured that they were setting it up for Messi to move on, because to me, Griezmann plays in where Messi does. You really, in order to put Griezmann in that team, you're asking Griezmann to do a job that he doesn't really want to do. For me, Griezmann was maybe Messi's successor. I don't believe Griezmann is as good a player as Messi ever was, but he fits into the Messi role. I don't see where Griezmann plays in the same system as Messi. He's not going to get the service that he craves, and I think that's why they're not getting on, because they don't get on with each other.
I agree with you 100%, Andy. And the other thing that tells me that the board are more important than both Messi and Koeman is Luis Suarez. Because you saw both Koeman and Messi have suffered because of Luis Suarez leaving the club.
Yeah, look, I think Barcelona has much bigger problems than Messi or Suarez or any individual player. And I do think that the demise of the team happened not this year. It's been 2-3 years in the making. And last year's game against Bayern was just the ultimate in terms of the fact that they're not going to progress. The same players, they came by the new players, they're not going anywhere. Now they may recover post-COVID because they have a lot of revenues that's going to come in. It's going to take them a while to rebuild and get to a good place. I think Messi's a drag on the team, not a benefit at this point in his career.
To respond to Apollo there, who's just put a thing, the reason Messi's going to leave is because Barca can't afford to pay him.
Yeah, and there's reports about Man City paying him, what, 400 mil over 5 years?
I don't think City will pay that kind of. I don't think they will.
No. I don't know if they can on the FFP. No, FFP doesn't work. And I don't think PSG can afford him either. With Neymar's wage and Mbappe wage coming up, they probably can't afford him. I think
there's a real chance Messi will go to America. I think there's a chance
they can't afford it. They can't afford it.
Nobody. The only place that he can make that kind of money is he goes to China or Qatar.
China has a wage structure now. China has a wage structure.
China's got wage cap now.
Yep, they have wage cap. I don't know where he goes for that money.
They're all coming back now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all coming back. Quickly for the games come up this week, and I won't pick every single game, but a few games. West Ham, Tottenham. Tony, I won't go to Andy. Tony.
Obviously, I want West Ham to batter Spurs. And I actually believe West Ham, having had a week off to prepare for this game, they'll have fresher legs. I think they'll cause Spurs problems. They're at their home ground. I'm gonna go 2-1 West Ham.
Andrew, I'm not saying he's spent. He's almost spent. Andy.
I'm gonna go. I have to be positive about this one because I believe Spurs have to win this game, and because we have to win it, I believe we will win it. And I'm going to go for an optimistic 3-1 to Spurs, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was 2-1 or 1-1. But I'm going 3-1 Spurs.
With your defense, Dave, Dave, your prediction?
I think I'm going to go. I think this is a must-win game for Tottenham. I'm going 2-1.
I'll say 2-2. I think West Ham will give them a good game, and I think Spurs will play well. Yeah, Liverpool, Everton, Dave.
Liverpool, Everton. I'm gonna go 2-1 Liverpool.
Tony.
2-2.
And Alan is back for Everton, by the way. Should just mention that. They'll have a centre midfielder with some bite. Andy?
Well, I was just about to say that. I was listening earlier, and apparently both Alan and Calvert-Lewin are back for tomorrow, which I think will be a big boost for Everton. I just think that Liverpool have turned a corner with that victory against Leipzig. I think that will give them a confidence boost. Yeah, and I think a confident Liverpool. Look, what I'm going to say is this: I can't see Everton winning. It wouldn't shock me if it was a draw, but I expect that Liverpool will probably win 2-1.
I'm going to say 2-1. Well, I'm going to say 3-1 Liverpool. I think Everton defense can be shocking. Allen should help, actually, shore up the center of the park. But I think Liverpool will win. I'm going to say 3-1 Liverpool. Southampton, Chelsea, Dave?
There's vibes of 1-1 floating in my head. There really is. I will say 1-0 Chelsea, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a draw.
Tony?
3-0 Chelsea.
Andy?
I think Hasenhüttl is going to have the Saints up for this one. I think 1-0 was a good shout, but I'm going to go for a hopeful 2-1 win for Southampton.
I think it depends on which Southampton turn up. Does Adam Ince and maybe Theo if he's backfire, or do we have the same old Southampton who has been struggling over the last 6 games? I'm going to say 2-1 Chelsea. Aston Villa, Leicester, Andy? I think Andrew's saying 2-1 Chelsea also.
Whoa. Aston Villa, Leicester. I think Leicester away from home are better than they are at home, although they have improved their home form recently, obviously with the win Liverpool. I think Aston Villa have had a bit of a stutter recently. I'm going to
Big
go
time.
1-0. I'm going to go 1-0 Villa.
By the way, Martinez doesn't give up goals. I think he has 12 clean sheets, Andy. So 1-0 Villa. That's probably a good call. Dave?
I'm going 1-0.
Tony?
Score draw.
2-0 to Leicester.
I say
On the
2-1.
subject of Martinez, are you gutted that you let him go?
Definitely.
I'm not gutted. I'm not gutted because we're dire straight for money. We needed some resources. I'm sure that money helped to get Partey because they put the 45 mil on the table. And a Partey-Leno combination versus Martinez-Leno, I prefer the Partey-Leno. That's my view in terms of how I rationalize. But Martinez is a better keeper, frankly, and he's showing it this year. And we all most of the people who support Arsenal that I know wanted Martinez to stay, but Leno is a good goalkeeper. So
You got to know something about the Arsenal sort of coaching setup, though, that he's been there that long, 10 years or whatever it is, and he never gets his chance to prove what he can do. You know, when he did at the end of last season, you won a trophy. It's just, it was a bit
we're strange though, Andy. We're very anxious when Leno got hurt. We think that was it, right? Leno's hurt, season's downhill, and he came in and was exceptional. That's why we probably won the FA Cup. So it does point to the fact that you sometimes have players who are buried and are not brought through and given an opportunity. And they may be good players, maybe something for their whole career. They haven't been given the chance, or at least a meaningful chance. So, for example, with Aubameyang, who has misfired most of his seasons, has 1 or 2 games, he will always get his opportunity. There are other players, say at Nelson, for example, who gets a chance, doesn't produce in 1 or 2 games, and get discarded. You're going to have that, right? So you have to have the credibility and reputation to have sustained game time if you're not performing, which we don't see happen to certain players. And Martinez is probably the perfect example why one shouldn't give up. Arsenal, Man City. By the way, Leicester, Aston Villa, I'm predicting Leicester win 2-1. Arsenal, Man City, Tony?
I called Leeds tough last week, and we absolutely. The funny thing is, we perform better against teams that play expansive football, and Man City play expansive football, so we should be able to do something here.
Depends on how expansive. Some people play expansive, you can't touch the ball.
Yeah.
It's a different expansive for Man City.
I'm going to pray for a cheeky 1-0 to Arsenal.
Wow, Dave.
It's not. Do you know what? It's not the worst shout. And I know City have been steamrolling things, but you got to remember like the game FA Cup last year as well. So you've had some success, not a lot, but some. But I don't think it's going to work this time. I've got a City win. Scoreline, I'm going to say 2-0.
Andy?
I think a lot of it could depend on what team City choose to put out, because although they have got lots of extra players, there are certain players that make more of a difference than others. That City's focus is going to be on the Champions League.
Yeah, sure.
And it wouldn't shock me if Arsenal got a result, but I still believe City will be too strong. So I'm going to go Arsenal 1, City 2.
So I'm going to say 2-2, and that's the hard talking. That's not the head. The head said 3-1 City. I saw the 2 goals they scored against Everton, the 2 last goals, and they were exceptional goals. Everton was not close to the ball, even when they were deep in their own half. So it's very difficult to play a team that presses you really hard, but then when they get the ball, you can't get at them at all. And unless we put in the effort, it's going to be a challenge for us. So I'm going to predict a 2-2 game, even though my head is telling me it's going to be 3-1 to the City. And last game, I'll ask prediction is Man U, Newcastle. Andy?
Without Wilson, I can't see anything other than 2-0 home win.
Dave?
2-0 home win. I'll go with that as well.
I'll go 3-0.
Yeah, I'll say, given how Man U like to beat up on bad teams, I'll say 3-0 Man U. So we've come to the end of the program. And look, it's been good having discussion. I think the Champions League discussion also is something that will would bring to the table, given that they are now up and running for the rest of the season?
Let's do that one last game. Atletico Chelsea. Great game this week.
Oh, yes. Why not? Atletico Chelsea. We have Dave go first. That's a great game, actually.
I think this is a real test now. I don't think I remember the draw being made, and I think I want to say the BT pundits were going, "Oh, the English teams should sail through." I completely think the opposite. I think we're underdogs in this. I think Atletico are flying, and I'm going to hope. I'm going to go 1-1. I'm going to hope that we can play some good football and get a goal and just get that away goal for us. So I'm going 1-1.
Where's the game? Who's the home team?
It's not in Madrid though. It's in a mutual venue. I can't remember where it is. I want to say it's in Bucharest.
Okay.
That springs to mind. So it's not actually at Atletico. So I'm going to say 1-1 because I still feel like a Simeone team is just structured, well organised. I don't know if it's too early for Tuchel in this particular juncture of his Chelsea career. So I'm gonna say 1-1, a hopeful 1-1.
Andy.
Again, I think a lot could depend on how they set up. I suspect that what Tuchel will do for Chelsea is he'll play, given who they're playing and the experience that Madrid have got, Atletico have got. I suspect that he'll play the more experienced guys like Azpilicueta, Silva, if he's available. I don't know if he's back, but I think he'll play the experience. I'll probably play Giroud, and maybe but some of the other guys that are used to European football, like Werner and people like that. I'll go 1-0 Atletico.
Tony.
Yeah, I believe Atletico are legitimate Champions League contenders to win the thing outright. They're playing phenomenal this season. The acquisition of Luis Suarez was a masterstroke. If 2-0 to Atletico, I see Atletico really bossing this game.
It is at Bucharest, by the way, guys. So it's not Atletico's. It's a different stadium. It's mutual. It's a mutual venue. It's a mutual game. So,
Atletico is a very hard team to play. Always has been. Always will be under Simeone. So I'm going to say 2-1 Atletico. I do think they are very sound defensively. They have improved offensively this season. Very hard to play against. Just like they didn't play Liverpool last year. They shut down your offensive game, and they now have enough quality up front to create problems. So I think they'll beat Chelsea 2-1. But I think Chelsea will give them a good game because I think Tuchel have Chelsea well structured, actually.
I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind if we lose 2-1 and we can get an away goal. I would like that.
Away goal.
So I think that's if they beat as long as we can score, as long as it's not a 3-1 and we stay one goal in it and we get a goal ourselves, I'll be happy with that, and I'll be quite confident.
I think Simeone will set up to try and make sure Chelsea don't get an away goal, and that's why I went for a 1-0 because I think he'll look to make sure Chelsea don't score. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I predict Hudson-Odoi will get at that back line and create havoc because I think when he's on form, he's very difficult to play, and he's gotten the confidence now from his manager. So I'm sure he creates some problems. Closing comments, guys. Andy?
Yeah, it's a lot of interesting, games are flying around at the moment. They're just coming thick and fast. I mean, I know just from Spurs' perspective, and it'll be the same for Arsenal in the Europa League. We've got games Sunday, Thursday for the next 3-4 weeks. It's, the games are coming thick and fast. They're big games. It's getting to the crux part of the season. I'm hoping that Mourinho's experience, this is what we've brought him in for. I'm hoping experience will pull us through this period and achieve our goals for the season, which is Champions League qualification and a trophy.
Okay, Dave.
Yeah, this is big time. European football's back, and it's gonna. I hope it's gonna work to our advantage because we've got such a big squad of players and good players as well. That I'm hoping that it's going to see us through this period of Champions League, Premier League, Champions League, all these European games and the cup competitions. So yeah, like listen, hopefully this get a draw or an away goal against Atletico.
Tony.
Yeah, just want to echo what the other guy said. Really, we've got so much football. You can't not have a day without football now. It's on every day. And, we've got great fixtures coming up every week. We're seeing great derbies across Europe, European football. So, yeah, enjoy your football, guys. And, I think next week the fixtures are even more exciting. So it's just like, just keep it coming.
Yeah,
well,
what was one by the way?
Yeah, I touched on what Andy said actually, which is I hope Marina implode like he normally does at some point. It has to happen. It's just one-time timing. Secondly, I hope Arteta picks the right team to play against Man City. I sometimes have one or two players he picks, which I'm not very comfortable with. Hope he picks the right team to give Man City a run.
Aubameyang?
Yeah, he has to play. He has to play Aubameyang. He has to play him. He does. He needs that speed up front. He needs that goal scoring threat up front. No matter how poor he is in his overall game, the goal scoring ability we need on the field. And I hope Partey can play and Tierney can play, which will give us better players to really be able to combat City. But it's going to be a tough game. And you guys,
Thomas Partey's out for 4 weeks.
Oh, he's out for 4 weeks. So we have Xhaka and Ceballos. So maybe I need to change my prediction. Actually, it doesn't look good. But as Andy, as you guys said, actually, there's a lot of football, which I can't watch some of the games because they're in the middle of my day and I have to work. But I do record the games and then I watch them afterwards. And it's fun just having football almost every single day. We have to go back to reality subsequent to the COVID and subsequent to the summer. But it's been fun having football almost every single day. I'm sure some of the misses don't love that. But I'm sure a lot of the guys love to watch their team play or watch good games. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. It's been good. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the games. And see you next week. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
See you, boys.
Bye.